Superman Red Sun sees phones ringing across America with rumors of a strange being. One phone that rings is Lois Luthor's, who is called by Perry White, who has no clue what the Russians are up to, but Eisenhower is making a broadcast from the White House soon and wonders if Lois has any scoop, since the rumors that he's heard is that the Russians have a new super weapon. At the White House, President Eisenhower addresses the secret the Russians have, a costumed individual with a power more than a hydrogen bomb. He says that this alien Superman is committed to the communist ideas and opposed to the US's position as a superpower, so he will be discussing with NATO how to respond. After the broadcast, Eisenhower talks with Agent James Olsen, who says that their sources say that Superman's ship crashed in the Ukraine 30 years ago and he was raised by farming folk. Eisenhower thinks that had the rocket landed 12 hours earlier, the Superman would have been an American citizen with their interests in mind. At the Daily Planet, the bullpen is in chaos as the news of the Superman spreads, this time on the news as witnesses to the Superman are interviewed, telling the story about how they saw the being and how Moscow wants a full invasion in weeks. In Smallville, Martha Kent learns of the mysterious being possibly spying on them with his X-ray vision. She says as if it's not enough that their own country spies on them with satellites, and she thanks her lucky stars that Jonathan Kent was never alive to see the day America was brought to its knees by this. Soon advertisements for the Superman begin playing on American TVs, proclaiming him to be the symbol of Russia's military might. Eisenhower knows his military, the FBI and the CIA are obsolete in this, so they need to turn to Star Labs and Lex Luthor, since the Cold War has just evolved. Later, over 3 separate chess games and while he learns Urdu, Lex Luthor meets Agent Olsen, going into Star Labs where James finds that Lex has spent all of the government's money on puzzles. Lex reassures James that his subconscious is working on the problem and the puzzles lubricate the cogs of his brain. Lex also reveals that he balanced the federal budget and will give the president that as well as the cure for inflation if he is left alone to work, since Superman is just another problem and Lex Luthor will crack it. Later at his apartment, as he learns to read lips, Lex is interrupted by Lois, who dumps one of her newspapers on his chess game, saying Russia is winning the Cold War and space race, and Superman is watching them from the skies. Lois is sick of printing these same stories over and over again, but Lex reassures her that she will soon be printing the Death of Superman headline. Reading the paper, he comes up with an idea, calling the White House and demanding to speak with the president. Lois wonders what's happening, but Lex tells her this information is on a need-to-know capacity. In Russia, Superman stops a train from colliding with a small girl as he hears of the Russian satellite Sputnik 2 plummeting towards Earth. He hears that the Americans must have sabotaged it, but the men tracking it know that it is going to impact in America. The satellite speeds down towards Metropolis as Superman catches up to it, grabbing it and barely missing the Daily Planet, causing it to crash into the bay. Debris from the satellite, however, hits the globe, causing it to fall, but Superman speeds from the bay, grabbing it and preventing it from hitting a young boy and his mother, returning the boy's balloon to him. While saving the people, Superman realizes that he never refuses a cry for help, and despite all of the lies the US has spread about him, for a single moment there, he realized that he was there to save them all. Despite saving the 6 million people in Metropolis, Superman's most vivid memory of that day was Lois Lane, who witnesses the rescue. Superman feels the connection he and Lois feel, and she feels it as well, but knows she won't act upon it because he knows that she is married. Returning the globe to the roof, Superman speeds off as Lex watches on nearby with Agent Olsen, telling the agent that this is all done for a reason, as his men retrieve Sputnik from the bay, which will help him create Eisenhower's own Superman. Weeks soon pass when Superman is thrown a welcome parade in Moscow, when suddenly a chemical plant explodes in Vladivostok, 1,000 miles away, forcing Superman to lead the parade, much to Stalin's disappointment. As he leaves, Peter Rosloff says that Superman has the attention span of a spastic 2-year-old, upset he couldn't even sit through his own parade. Stalin says that what was he supposed to do when he could hear those people screaming? Peter wishes that he'd show more respect, and how could Stalin bring an alien into his inner circle? Stalin says that it's because the people love him and he makes Russia feel indestructible, something that he can use greatly. Rosloff is angered since he was meant to be on top and Stalin's been grooming him since he was 8, but Superman came in and took all his glory. But Stalin reminds him that he's still the youngest chief of the NKVD and he should watch his tongue around him. That night, a party is held where Stalin talks with Hippolyta, trying to secure an alliance with Paradise Island over joining joining NATO or the Warsaw Pact. Hippolyta is impressed with Russia's women's rights movements, but the human rights record is less than stellar, so Themyscira will remain neutral for a while longer. Stalin hopes not for long, since Superman seems to be getting along very well with Princess Diana. Stalin tries to seduce Hippolyta upstairs, but she tells him not to embarrass himself. Superman and Diana meanwhile share a dance, where Superman says that the whole celebration for him isn't really what he likes, but he hopes the festivities aren't boring Diana. She says compared to the island, these are wonderful, and she is happy to finally have met someone just like her. Hippolyta meets with her daughter, impressed that she is already building bridges with a future leader. As the party continues, Superman spies Peter 200 miles away, so going to see him, Superman finds the drunk young man practicing his shooting on a scarecrow. Peter isn't too happy to see Superman, who asks why the man has been acting so irrational lately. Superman fixes the scarecrow, angering Peter since he wishes the Man of Steel would just stop fixing things for once. Superman wants to know what's getting him so upset, so Peter tells him it's Superman taking his spotlight. Peter continues his target practice, saying Superman is the exact opposite of a Marxist doctrine and proof all men are not created equal. He tells Superman that he was never invited to the party by Stalin, and no matter how good he is with a rifle or how strong he is, no one will be able to stand up to the Superman. So why would Stalin bother with Peter being his bodyguard, since a bulletproof alien who's had powers since he was a baby is much better? Superman corrects Peter, saying that he had his powers kick in at 12 years old, and until then he was just a normal boy, and if he had them earlier he probably would have left the farm, but he didn't since his parents wanted him to be ready for the big city. Superman says that he believes in Russia just as much as Peter does, but the man thinks that's easy for someone who flies high in the sky to say, since he's not down in the gutters like him. Peter talks about how just last week he had to purge some dissonance for handing out anti-communist propaganda, killing the parents of a boy but leaving him alive, telling him to leave before he changes his mind. The boy however doesn't, so Peter shoots him in the arm, getting the boy to move on. Peter says that he will never forget that boy's stare, hearing rumours that the boy killed himself, while others said that he would get revenge soon. He wonders what killing a boy's parents does to a child, and can anyone actually answer that? Peter says that he's sick of working in a system and he's never getting to the top now that Superman is there. So taking his gun, he points it at his head and fires, but Superman stops the bullet, angering Peter. The man says that while everyone loves Superman now, they will soon turn on him. Peter soon breaks down, saying that he's done something terrible, but Superman's mind is elsewhere, as something is happening in Moscow. He races off as Stalin has been found poisoned. Superman races to a library, reading every medical textbook he can, and going to see Stalin, he knows the man has been poisoned by cyanide, and he needs to be put in hospital and monitored while he works on the antitoxin. Later on, Peter arrives at his father's bedside, shocked at how his father looks now. As Superman deals with a dying leader, Lex unveils his project to Agent Olsen, saying he's invented something right out of a Ray Bradbury book. He unveils to the agent Superman 2, America's answer to the Superman. In the days and weeks that followed after Stalin's death, Superman kept tabs on the Americans, knowing they plan to deal with the communist threat and contain it. Superman also learned of the duplicate, which he saw as a personal matter. Bizarro meanwhile accompanies a US nuclear submarine when Superman confronts him, burning the duplicate with his heat vision and causing Bizarro to explode with his telescopic X-ray vision, which racks the US subcrew with pain, so much so that they launch their nuke accidentally. Superman plans on destroying the nuke but is attacked by Bizarro, who smashes him so hard he blows straight through the middle of London, killing thousands. Superman regains composure and confronts Bizarro, saying that his presence here is an aggressive act and he is the monster there. The people of London soon converge on them, telling Superman to kill the monster, but Superman says for him to go home and tell Eisenhower to mind his own affairs. Suddenly Superman remembers the missile, but Bizarro uses his freeze vision on Superman, freezing him in place and speeding off and grabbing the warhead, saying he's very pleased to meet everybody as he takes the nuke into space as it explodes. Watching the explosion, Superman wonders what possessed the monster to do that, thinking that maybe he looked into Superman's eyes and saw the future is something he couldn't bear to see. Soon Joseph Stalin's funeral is had and Russia mourns for its fallen leader. Amongst the prayers, Superman hears a voice of the red-headed girl from his time in the Ukraine cornfields as the people around Superman begin making their moves for power, wondering who will succeed in Stalin's place. Later, Superman meets with Peter, who wonders if Superman has heard the rumors of Stalin's successor. Superman says that he isn't interested in politics or leading the party, merely wanting to be a worker for the people. Peter is glad to hear it, but knows that communism will die with his father, especially in the face of the US, who have entered the superhuman arms race themselves. In Metropolis, Lois is talking to the sky, knowing that Superman can hear her, telling him that she's always had a dream about falling to Earth when she is suddenly saved by a person in the nick of time, and now she knows that person is real. Perry arrives telling her that Lex is on the phone for her. Lex, having just murdered his scientists at Star Labs, tells Lois that they are getting a divorce, since all his time now must be focused on stopping this Superman threat. He reveals he resigned from Star Labs and destroyed all his equipment and research, so no one can replicate his Superman duplicate. Lois can't believe he's breaking their marriage off over Superman beating his monster, but Lex says it's not just because of that, but also because his monster actually beat him in chess. In Russia, Superman is called down to the ground by Lana Lazarenko, his old friend from the cornfields. Superman is happy to see her and even surprised that she has 2 children. Lana says that they came to the city for the funeral but are now destitute and lining up for food, so Superman goes to the front of the line, telling the bread bank owner to give the woman and her children some food. A man asks what about the rest of them, since some haven't eaten in weeks and things in the country are getting worse. Lana says that Superman can't look after everyone's problems, but Superman says he can, and he will, since he will now lead the country from now on. Taking off, he tells the people that they don't have to be scared or hungry anymore, because Superman is there to rescue them. Decades later, in 1978, Lex Luthor continues his battle with Superman, having shrunk Stalingrad, but angered since Brainiac didn't shrink the city when Superman was there. Superman arrives, demanding to know where Brainiac is, but Lex says that 8 million Soviets will be trapped if the Man of Steel doesn't catch Brainiac, who has left Earth's orbit. Superman catches Brainiac, taking Brainiac's head while wondering what the point of Lex Luthor was, since he's one of the greatest minds of his kind, and he could achieve so much for his species. Superman thinks that he is there to keep him in check, or maybe it's the other way around, and that's why Lex Luthor despises him. He soon returns to Luthor, who says that it took Superman 48 seconds to catch up with Brainiac, meaning he's slowing in his age. Superman says that he looked through Brainiac's memory files and found nothing of use that could help them return Stalingrad to normal. Lex, however, drops the city, which Superman quickly catches, saying Superman is supposed to be smart, so maybe he can find a solution all on his own. As Superman leaves, Lex gets back to work, telling Miss Tessmacher to get Loomis and Shot to enact Plan 307. In Moscow, Lana guides a tour of the Superman Museum, showing the people all the different villains Lex Luthor has sent after Superman, who has stopped every single one of them. One of the guards tells a shadowy man to keep moving through the exhibits, as Lana says that only the US and Chile are the last 2 countries not joined to the Soviet Union, and are both about to collapse into financial and social crisis. She says under Superman's rule, the world is now free from poverty and ignorance. The shadowy man leaves the museum, knowing everything that he has heard is bullshit. He heads to a bar where he meets a soldier talking out about the government. The soldier doesn't think Superman would do anything to him, but the man reminds him that the others who have spoken out about Superman's rule are lobotomized and turned into mindless servants. The man tells the bartender that the fireworks display is almost ready, and he hopes that he's got his alibi ready. The man tells the bartender to buy the soldier a drink and put it on his tab as he leaves. At the museum, a voice interrupts the usual broadcasts, saying that if they like living, he implores them to leave the museum. The man is revealed to be the Batman, who blows up the museum. Choppers soon spot Batman, engaging him and chasing him across a rooftop as he swings down onto a train. The KGB agents see Batman fall from the train, hitting a car after taking half a dozen bullets. The teams converge on the car, but find it was just a dummy, meaning the Dark Knight has escaped them yet again. Elsewhere, Peter angrily confronts Superman, who never turned up to the Batman incident, causing them to lose the masked vigilante, as well as the terrorists' plot succeeding. Peter wants to crack some skulls like the good old days now, but Superman demands that there be no killing, since his utopia will not be built on the bones of his opponents like how Stalin ran the country. As they talk, Superman races off to save a train from derailing, knowing that in that moment he is growing bored of human conversation. The only person who knew what Superman is going through was Diana, who has come to call herself Wonder Woman, leaving Themyscira to fight for communism with Superman and becoming a champion of social justice. Superman and Wonder Woman save people from a burning tanker as they talk about America, which Diana visited recently, much to her disgust. Superman knows that JFK clings to his capitalist dogma out of pride. Wonder Woman says that the tanker will soon explode, however Superman stops it, freezing it before returning to their conversation, saying sometimes he thinks Lex is right and the Americans are right, since their people don't bother with safety anymore thanks to them. Diana says that they just can't sit back and do nothing for the people, and Superman knows that the KGB want him to be more punishing, but he worries he's already holding on to the people too tightly and they might not like him. However, Wonder Woman reminds him that she believes that people love him. In Metropolis, Oliver Queen and the Daily Planet reporters host Perry White's retirement party, gifting him a bust of Caesar. As Iris West takes his photo, Perry tells her not to call him Chief, going with Lois to show her new office and give her the editor-in-chief tour. Lois finds becoming editor-in-chief like she's trespassing, but Perry knows that will go away soon. He hopes he can give her some advice, knowing that she needs someone to be there for her when this country that's already on its knees eventually gets worse. Lois says that she has her husband, but Perry knows that Lex Luthor isn't there for her and prefers spending his time trying to kill Superman in insane ways. Later at LexCorp, Lois goes to visit her husband, reminding him of their 23rd anniversary. He tells her to leave the usual present on his desk and his assistant will open it later. Lois soon learns that Agent Olsen has commissioned LexCorp to make the most effective anti-Superman weapon yet. He asks if Lois will be joining him, Nora Jean and JFK for dinner, where they will be discussing the UFO situation he has been briefed on. But Lois is angered her husband never stops, since this was supposed to be the one day of the year where she could spend time with him. But Lex doesn't care, saying another alien crashed in Roswell in the 40s and America might just have their own alien Superman after all. Despite the alien actually dying, he did however leave an object that interests Lex enormously. Lois tells him to bring JFK and Nora Jean to dinner if he wants, since she doesn't care anymore, but Lex thinks she does, as Lois thinks about Superman yet again. Superman and Wonder Woman meanwhile continue their partnership, with Superman remembering how blind he was to the fact that Diana had love for him. Peter meanwhile is kidnapped by a mustached man who drives his car off a bridge and, taking the unconscious KGB under the water, he takes him to the Batcave, where he meets Batman. Batman knows all about Peter, the illegitimate son of Stalin, and how much of a vain man with political ambitions he is. Batman knows that Peter wanted to talk to him, learning it's safe too, since inside the Batcave it's soundproofed and cloaked using stolen Soviet tech. Peter says that Lex Luthor and the CIA have a proposition for Batman, and that is to kill Superman. Batman doesn't know how this is different from any of the other plans the Americans have tried, learning that they now have information taken directly from Superman's rocket, having figured out his weakness. Batman knows Peter wants him to do this, so he will be in charge, but he knows the man is 10 times bad as Superman. Peter wonders what regime someone like Batman has a chance of toppling, Superman's or his. Batman remembers Roslov murdering his parents as he tells the man he's got a deal, and after he has killed Superman, he will come for him in the memory of his mother and father. Later, President Superman is celebrated with a party, which soon turns sour when the people notice the fireworks Dr. Savannah set up have exploded into the shape of a bat. In Siberia, Batman has captured Wonder Woman, using her to call out to Superman and bait him towards them as Batman activates his LexCorp programs to full power. Superman arrives, finding Wonder Woman has been tied up by her own lasso, meaning she cannot break free from it. Superman notes that Batman has a bomb implanted in him, as the vigilante says that the human brain is the most dangerous weapon on the world. He activates his red sun lamps, allowing him to smash Superman in the face without hurting himself, taking the Man of Steel by surprise as the Dark Knight continues his assault. Batman tells Superman that they only needed to create the right conditions to defeat him, like making red sun lamps and sealing Superman in a cell beneath a Siberian detention camp. Batman reassures Superman that he will survive down there, unlike the dissidents who died in the camps, to make the system Superman upholds better. Superman fights back and tries to escape, but Batman uses his batarangs to knock him out, dumping him into the cell and turning on the red sun lamps inside. Superman regains consciousness in the cell, calling for Diana to break free from her bonds and find the lamp generator and destroy it. He tells her that she can do whatever it takes to break free, so using all of her strength, Wonder Woman snaps out of the magic lasso, finding the generator and destroying it and letting Superman out of the cell. Superman confronts Batman, but before he can stop the Dark Knight, he activates his chest bomb, telling Superman it was Peter who betrayed him before blowing himself up. The now white-haired Diana arrives, knowing something inside her broke when she destroyed her lasso. In New Mexico, Lex meets with JFK, learning of the chaos all over the country. JFK shows Lex the ship they found along with the dead alien who was part of some type of space police force. Lex wonders what the lantern is for and learns that it's some type of doorway to a power source, controlled by a ring they also found. Lex knows, however, that this ring isn't any normal ring, but a weapon. Time passes in Russia and Superman's reign grows tighter. Because of it, rebellions soon form under the face of the Batman. After Siberia, Wonder Woman has been left essentially comatose, barely saying anything for months on end. She is now tended to by Commander Rosloff, who, as Lana soon discovers, has been lobotomized by Superman to obey his every order. Peter says that he feels so much better now, showing Lana the new command center where Brainiac runs Superman's day-to-day affairs, since Superman is now gone from the country, having hired scientists and artists to design him a fortress of solitude in the northern wastes of Russia. On Superman's 63rd birthday, Superman learns that the world contains 63 billion communists, 63 billion people who never wanted for anything in the utopia he has created. Going to his fortress of solitude, Superman notes to Brainiac how the Batmen seem to be responding well to their new personalities, something Brainiac knows all too well since he too was reprogrammed. He tells his master productivity is up and suicides are down ever since they drug the water supply. Superman learns America is still a war zone, refusing their aid packages. Brainiac thinks that invading them is the humane thing to do, but the Man of Steel refuses to do so since the US will fall eventually and all he will need to do is pick up the pieces. Superman bides his time, playing chess with a robot, unaware that Lex Luthor has been plotting away. Soon, Lex Luthor wins the presidency, shutting down all trade with other countries and activating an internal market he has complete control over, causing him to double the standard of living for every American before eradicating homelessness in the 34 states still allied with the United States. Soon he even sees the return of the 16 states that left, reunifying the country and ushering in a golden age for America again. Lex doesn't do this for the people though, as this is his first step in his new plan to stop Superman. Lois meanwhile is told by her sister Lucy that the old Daily Planet will be ripped down and closed. Lois finds the planet being closed and Metropolis Eagle left alive a little unfair, wondering if Lex is doing this on purpose to her. Lucy doesn't believe that since Lois's duties as First Lady take priority over running a newspaper, especially since Lex taking office has made things much better. Lois wonders if Lex's battle with Superman is really in the world's best interest, since they could just be replacing one deranged man with another, but Lucy only cares if the crazed leader speaks English. Lex meanwhile travels on Air Force One with Agent Olsen, who knows that Superman's only option left is to deal with America by invasion. Jimmy knows that if that happens, they are goners, and what makes Lex think that he can defeat him now? Lex activates a button, causing the plane to fly through a portal into what Lex calls the Phantom Zone, a place safe away from Superman's ears and eyes. Jimmy sees a man fly above them, realizing that Lex has finally cracked the Green Lantern battery. Lex calls it codename Green Light, and it's the best bet they have at stopping Superman. Jimmy wonders who is in control of such a powerful weapon, learning it is Colonel Hal Jordan, a former pilot who was shot down and captured, tortured by communists, and left to rot in a cell for 4 years. Hal spent those 4 years retreating into his own mind and building a concentration camp for the communists in his mind, taking weeks to build it step by step, all to mentally execute his captors. Therefore, someone with his level of will was the perfect candidate for the power ring, but he is one of several surprises Lex has in store for Superman now. Lois meanwhile visits Wonder Woman on Themyscira, impressed with the all-woman island. Diana knows that man's world is growing more insane every year and she's happy she has retreated from it. Lois wonders if maybe she misses Superman, but Diana says that she thought Superman was different but soon learned the truth that he's more dangerous and power-obsessed than any other male. She does find him most charismatic, however, and Lois agrees, saying that if she wasn't married she might even find him attractive. Diana wonders why Lois ever got with Lex, since he's very self-obsessed, knowing that he only ran for the presidency since it gave him a more effective platform to try and kill Superman. Diana wants to know the real reason Lois came to see her, learning Lex wants her support when he launches his next attack on Superman in 24 hours. In the bottle city of Stalingrad, hundreds have been killed when a microscopic organism slipped through the filters. Superman apologizes since he has been preoccupied lately and should have noticed it happen. He promises to double his efforts and will check their filters hourly entirely from now on. Turning off his visual image, he returns to the larger world, knowing Brainiac set that organism loose in the city in order to gather information. Superman says that Brainiac took what made those people human away by doing that attack, since being unable to grow them back to normal size has been the only black spot on his career. Brainiac knows, however, that there is even bigger things to deal with now that the United States is a threat again, and Lex Luthor's ultimate death trap is soon approaching. Brainiac implores Superman to strike first against the country and complete his mission he should have done 50 years ago. Superman says that he won't invade them since he's accomplished everything so far by just winning the argument, not throwing fists. Brainiac calls America a cancer that needs to be cut out, so Superman looks over the numbers, learning only 6.5 million people would die and the invasion would last only 8 hours, but every half an hour they delay, the casualties double. Suddenly, Lex Luthor arrives in the fortress, telling Superman to surrender as Hal Jordan rallies the Green Lantern Corps with their oath. Superman demands to know how Lex got past his defenses, but Lex thought the defenses were just some cheap Russian folk decorations. He looks over the fortress, wondering if the rumors of Superman playing chess with Brainiac until one of them breaks down crying is true. Superman wonders why Lex isn't prepping his next big doomsday weapon, but Luthor says that the Wonder Woman and Green Lantern Marine Corps are good, but not as good as his brain, which he wants to fight Superman with on his own terms. Lex is suddenly overcome by Brainiac's computer cables, pulling him into the mainframe where the robot plans on making him one of the Superman robots like the Batman. Brainiac says that Lex couldn't be allowed to debate Superman one-on-one since he would have talked Superman into suicide within 14 minutes. Superman wonders if this is how it all ends, as Brainiac tells him that he needs to meet aggression with aggression and protect everything he has made. As the Green Lantern Corps race towards the fortress, Superman tells Brainiac to prepare the ship for a full-scale assault on the American West Coast, while he takes the East Coast, converging in Washington, D.C. As Jimmy commands the Green Lanterns, Superman attacks them, picking them apart. Soon they focus and trap him in a safe construct, which Hal puts in an infinite number of boxes. The Marines, however, falter in their concentration, and Superman smashes out of the construct, taking Hal's ring and swallowing it, telling him a thought-based weapon isn't such a good weapon against someone who can move at 10 times the speed of thought. He tells the Marines that he will be back to reprogram them all in 1 hour as the Amazonian army soon converges on Superman, who blows right through Diana and her army with his heat vision. Diana manages to grab Superman and continue the battle as Jimmy orders all of the supervillains they made to be released. He tells Wonder Woman to fall back as Atomic Skull, Doomsday, Parasite, Livewire, and others converge on Superman. At the White House, Lois is told she needs to evacuate, as Brainiac's ship has arrived in Washington, but Lois refuses to leave, saying Lex Luthor doesn't make mistakes, hopefully. Superman finishes off the villains, telling Lois to evacuate the area since he doesn't want to see anyone get hurt. Lois refuses to leave her home despite Superman telling her America is finished and Lex has nothing left to hit him with. Lois tells him that's not true since she's got one more thing. She points to the letter in her jacket, but Superman doesn't think a letter will stop him. He looks at the letter with his X-ray vision, suddenly overcome with grief, breaking down, saying that all he ever wanted to do was stop wars and famines and wanted the best for everyone. Lois opens the letter, discovering what Lex had written, a question asking why Superman doesn't just bottle the entire world. Brainiac asks if Superman is okay, but Superman says that he's just as bad as the 12th level intellect was, demanding he deactivate his weapons and head back to the fortress. Brainiac refuses to stop, saying Superman is denying his utopia from ever happening. Superman says that leaving them alone means that they can make their own mistakes again, and Luthor was right, that this is how the world isn't meant to be. Brainiac hopes that this is not Superman's final wish, and learning that it is indeed, Brainiac blasts him with kryptonite, revealing that he was never programmed by Superman, and Superman was under his command the whole time. He finds it a real shame that Superman will never live to see the universe under his watchful eye, but suddenly Brainiac shuts down as Lex, back at the fortress, begins destroying the computer systems, telling Superman it's his move now. Superman speeds into the ship, destroying Brainiac once and for all, and planning on burying the ship on the moon before planning on meeting with Lex to figure out whether he can stay on Earth safely or not. A countdown suddenly begins and Lex realizes that Brainiac rigged the ship to blow its 6 mini black hole engines. Grabbing the ship, Superman pulls it into outer space, learning he isn't even fast enough to get it away from Earth in time. Superman tells him not to count him out as he speeds out of the solar system with the ship. Superman knows that Lex won't hear the message he has for him for a while, but he wants him to know that their game of theirs was well played. The ship explodes, consuming Superman, as Lex knows that the world is really ready to embrace Lutherism, taking Superman's chess pieces and checkmating the Man of Steel once and for all. In the years that followed, Lex Luthor won the presidency yet again with Jimmy Olsen with a 101% approval rating. Luthor creates the global United States, taking over the Fortress of Solitude and beginning his new style of government using some of Superman's ideals, ushering in a new order for the entire world which sees cancer get eliminated until on the cusp of his 4th millennium alive, Luthor was ready to die. Asked by the newsbots what his greatest achievement was, telling them without a moment's hesitation it was defeating the Superman. Lex soon dies, and in Metropolis his funeral is held, attended by a familiar glasses-wearing man that Lois seems to recognize. The man, an unpowered Superman, heads off into the city, knowing humankind can survive without him. Luthor's line continued to rule the world into the far future, soon adopting the single-letter last name of L. In this distant future, Lex Luthor's great-grandson to the power of 50, Jor-El, knew something was happening to the world, as their sun had become red and dim. Superman wonders if this Jor-El character was right, and something will soon happen. Something does indeed soon happen as the world soon begins to crumble, causing Jor-El to tell Lara that the council won't listen to him. Taking his son, he says that Kal-El shouldn't have to suffer for being born on a world with nothing left to conquer. Lara doesn't like the idea of sending her son so far back in time to a primitive world where the sun's rays are yellow, but Jor says that because of that he will be a Superman. Loading their son into his rocket, Jor-El and Lara watch as their son is blasted into space from Krypton, emerging in 1938 Ukraine, where his ship lands on a simple corn farm. Superman Red Sun holds a special place in my heart. It was the first full Elseworlds story I read and bought and ignited the love I have for Elseworlds to this day. It's a fantastic alternate take on Superman's origin and comes from such a simple premise. What if baby Superman landed in Russia instead of the US? Mark Millar does a really great job capturing Superman's core values and leaving them intact throughout the whole story. Also changing things in the story that always leaves you on the edge of your seat, especially the mind-blowing twist ending. I wholly enjoyed seeing my favorite superhero in such a different setting here, and how just a simple change as landing in a different country reflects on how the character acts, how he feels, the culture he's brought up in, but also the values instilled by his creators and other fantastic writers over the years are still intact, and how no matter where he grows up, be it Russia, America, or any other country over the world, his values are still intact. And that's really the message I got from this book. No matter where he is, he's still Superman. Dave Johnson's art is fantastic as well, really imbuing that 1940s 50s setting of the book and putting a modern spin on the 40s Fleischer cartoon look. I cannot recommend Superman Red Sun enough, and if you haven't read it, definitely check it out. I'm going to give Superman Red Sun a 10 out of 10.